In our last video, we explored why legal experts say this case is different. The scale of the evidence, the determination of judges, the timing, and the unprecedented stakes that make this trial unlike any Trump has faced before. But tonight, we turn to a new and dangerous reality. Trump's own past statements are now being used against him. Words once spoken in rallies, interviews, and press conferences are resurfacing in courtrooms, transformed from political weapons into legal evidence, and the consequences could be devastating. Because for years, Trump thrived on spectacle. His speeches electrified crowds, his interviews dominated headlines, his words shaped narratives. But legal experts warn that those same words are now being replayed in courtrooms, stripped of applause, stripped of context, examined under the cold light of the law. What once rallied supporters now risks incriminating him. This is the danger of spectacle colliding with silence, when words meant for politics become evidence in trials. Consider the election interference cases where prosecutors point to Trump's own statements about the election, his repeated claims of fraud, his calls to fight like hell. In rallies, those words ignited passion. In court, they are dissected as intent. Legal experts argue these statements reveal motive, mindset, and purpose. What once energized crowds now risks being interpreted as incitement. Imagine jurors listening not to chants, but to recordings of Trump's own voice played back as evidence of intent. Each phrase once cheered now becomes a line of questioning. Each slogan once shouted now becomes a potential admission. And here lies the danger. Every word frozen in time, replayed without the roar of the crowd, without the energy of the rally, only the cold silence of the courtroom. In the financial investigations, Trump's past boasts about his wealth, his empire, his success are scrutinized. Statements about deals, valuations, profits, once meant to project strength, are now compared against documents, contracts, records. Legal experts say these contradictions are powerful because they expose gaps between words and reality. What once built an image of success now risks dismantling credibility. Every boast becomes a potential inconsistency, every claim a possible contradiction. Imagine prosecutors holding up Trump's own words against financial records, showing jurors the difference between what was said and what was true. The classified documents case reveals the same danger. Trump's own words about protecting national security, about handling sensitive information, are contrasted with allegations of mishandling classified files. Legal experts argue these statements matter because they show awareness. If Trump publicly acknowledged the importance of safeguarding secrets, then any mishandling becomes harder to defend. What once sounded like strength now risks sounding like hypocrisy. And hypocrisy in court can be fatal. Imagine jurors hearing Trump's own speeches about protecting America, while prosecutors argue he failed to protect its secrets. This is why legal experts say Trump's past statements are now being used against him. Words that once seemed harmless, even powerful, are weaponized in ways he never anticipated. The courtroom strips away applause, strips away context, leaves only raw meaning. And in that raw meaning, prosecutors find intent, motive, contradiction. Trump's greatest weapon, his words, may now be his greatest weakness. Supporters may argue these statements are taken out of context. Opponents may argue they reveal the truth. But the deeper reality is that words once spoken cannot be erased. They linger, they echo, they resurface. Legal experts warn this case is different because the evidence is not just documents or recordings. It is Trump's own voice, his own words, his own statements. And when a defendant's words become evidence, the defense faces a battle unlike any other. The world is watching, allies and adversaries alike studying how America handles this crisis. If Trump's own words are enough to convict, it signals that even the most powerful cannot escape accountability. If they are dismissed, it signals that words, no matter how dangerous, can be ignored. Either outcome leaves scars. Every statement, every recording, every quote sends a message, not just to America, but to the world. Ultimately, Trump's past statements may prove to be his greatest vulnerability. Built on spectacle, designed to rally, they now risk dismantling the very defense he relies on. Judges are listening, prosecutors replaying, jurors watching. What once built a movement may now dismantle a defense. This is why legal experts say this case is different, because the evidence is not just external, it comes from Trump himself. The storm is intensifying. In the last video, we saw why legal experts believe this case is different. Now we see why Trump's own words may be the most dangerous evidence of all. Every statement, every boast, every claim pushes him closer to a reckoning. The question is not only whether he can survive the trial, but whether America itself can withstand the pressure. Because when the pillars of democracy tremble, the cracks spread far beyond one man. And once the cracks appear, can they ever be repaired? And now the question is yours. Trump's past statements are now being used against him. Do you believe his own words will ultimately bring accountability? Or will he find a way to turn even these statements into survival? Trump's past statements are not isolated lines. They are threads woven into years of speeches, interviews, and rallies. And now those threads are being pulled apart in courtrooms, each word examined, each phrase replayed, each boast dissected. And legal experts argue that this accumulation of statements creates a pattern, a narrative of intent that prosecutors can use to build their case. Because when jurors hear not just one statement but dozens, repeated over time, the impact is magnified. The consistency of the rhetoric becomes evidence of mindset, and the defense faces the impossible task of explaining away years of repetition. Imagine the courtroom where prosecutors play clip after clip, Trump's voice echoing again and again, the same claims, the same slogans, the same defiance. And jurors sit in silence, absorbing the weight of repetition. What once felt like energy now feels like insistence. What once sounded like passion now risks sounding like obsession. And obsession in court can be interpreted as intent. In financial cases, the same danger emerges. Trump's repeated boasts about his empire, his wealth, his success, once designed to project strength, now risk being compared against records that tell a different story. Every exaggeration becomes a contradiction. Every boast becomes a liability. And legal experts say this case is different because the sheer volume of statements makes contradictions impossible to ignore. Imagine prosecutors presenting financial documents side by side with Trump's own words, showing jurors the gap between rhetoric and reality. The courtroom becomes a mirror, reflecting not the image Trump built, but the cracks beneath it. In the classified documents case, his own words about protecting national security are replayed. Speeches where he emphasized the importance of safeguarding secrets, interviews where he spoke about the dangers of leaks. And now, prosecutors argue that those very words prove he understood the stakes, that he knew the importance of protection, and therefore any mishandling cannot be excused as ignorance. Hypocrisy becomes evidence. And evidence becomes vulnerability. Supporters may still cheer, opponents may still condemn, but inside the courtroom, the words are stripped of emotion, stripped of applause, stripped of context, leaving only meaning. And meaning is what jurors must decide upon. Legal experts warn that this accumulation of statements is unprecedented. Rarely has a defendant's own voice provided so much material for prosecutors. Rarely has rhetoric itself become the foundation of evidence. And this is why they say this case is different. Because the evidence is not external, it is internal. It is Trump himself. The storm intensifies as media replay these courtroom moments. Headlines echo the words, commentators dissect the statements, and the public watches as spectacle collapses into silence. The global stage watches too. Allies and adversaries alike, studying how America handles a trial where words are the weapon. If Trump's own statements are enough to convict, it signals that accountability reaches even the most powerful. If they are dismissed, It signals that words, no matter how dangerous, can be ignored. Either outcome leaves scars, and every statement sends a message, not just to America, but to the world. Ultimately, Trump's past statements may prove to be his greatest vulnerability. Built on spectacle, designed to rally, they now risk dismantling the very defense he relies on. Judges listen, prosecutors replay, jurors watch, and what once built a movement may now dismantle a defense. This is why legal experts say this case is different, because the evidence is not just external, it comes from Trump himself. And now the question is yours. Trump's past statements are now being used against him. Do you believe his own words will ultimately bring accountability? Or will he find a way to turn even these statements into survival? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice is part of this unfolding story.